In this episode of Hot Hardware's 2.5 Geeks, how many CPU cores do you need for fantastic PC gaming? And we'll be giving away a dang fantastic gaming rig. We'll be announcing a giveaway next. Welcome back to yet another fine episode of Hot Hardware's 2.5 Geeks live stream, webcast, podcast, all the casts. We've got them here. How you doing, fellas? Happy hump day to you.
Doing good, man. Doing good. How you doing?
Good. Busy week. Went and saw my son over the Mother's Day weekend out in Cincinnati. So a little bit of traveling going on, but playing catch up now. Had, came in late on Monday. So yeah, playing catch up. But other than that, life is good. Can't complain either. How's things in Glockamora with you there, Marco?
Good. Didn't you also perhaps celebrate a little birthday?
No, I don't have those anymore. I fresh out of them.
It just stops.
Dave is 29 again this week.
That's it.
Big round of applause for Dave.
That's it. Yay. Happy birthday to me. Well, yeah, time marches on and it's crazy. As you get older, it accelerates. There is definitely an acceleration effect when you are, I don't know, sub 30, which I'm clearly not. 29, I wish I was. When you're sub 30, it's like the days are never ending, but now they just fly by. It's true, kids, what your parents have always said. The days fly by.
So the very first time Dave left me in charge of the site was when his daughter was born, and today we listened to her on college radio. So yeah, that's how things are progressing with Dave and I.
Oh, yes, you dated me. Thank you so much. I do have a daughter in college.
I dated you. I was with you.
I know. You dated us both. And I have a son out of college by a year and a year. So, I'm definitely ancient. Chris, you're the yuppie amongst us, the young urban professional.
Yeah.
How's it going over there with you, buddy? How's things in Maine, the North Country where the men are men and everything, whatever.
It's going well. I've been running around like crazy to get set up for the after stream, I guess we can call it.
Yes.
So my setup's a little different right now because I'm not in my usual office. I'm in Brittany's office. So got the green screen set up behind me, and it was too much work to tear down. So we got, a little more branding instead.
Nice. I like it. I like the branding. It's some good branding, I might add. The old HotHardware.com branding behind you. And Brittany has the green screen set up, huh? So she really is the wizard in the family.
I mean, yeah. So
she's the wizard, and she may be the wizard in Destiny 2. Is there a wizard in Destiny 2? I don't play that game very much.
There's a warlock, which is what she plays as. So
there you go.
To a wizard.
She's the warlock.
And Francois pointing out that I have the color balance of Maine. Yep, I'm also using a different camera than usual. Haven't bothered to set the color balance. Let's see if we can do that live.
Well, I mean, your color balance isn't fair. Color balance isn't fair because you're contrasted against a couple of not so fair-skinned Italian fellows. So we'll guaranteed to screw up anybody's color, us two, right, Marco? Okay, you're muted. You're muted.
What a dumbass. So in my preview screen, I look really red, but in the StreamYard, I look my natural olive, so I can't figure out my colors either. No biggie.
And we almost could tell what you were saying, even though your mic was off, because your hands were explaining
all the speaking.
This is how you know someone's got an Italian accent. It's this hand gesture.
All right, exactly. My poor Scandinavian blood can't keep up.
All right, well, with all that funny banter out of the way, thanks everybody for the birthday wishes. I see them in the chat. You're all so kind. Welcome all from YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. And I think we've got some Periscope going on in here too. If you haven't caught a stream, we try to show up here Wednesdays at 5:30 p.m. This is Hot Hardware's 2.5 Geeks podcast. I generally play the half geek, although that can be round robin at times. Yes, we do have something amazing that we'll be discussing later on in the cast. that is live now. The Hot Hardware Destiny 2 Talon gaming PC giveaway with Falcon Northwest, AMD, and Bungie. That's a mouthful. Yes, but collaboration and sponsorship all around for some fantastic folks. Excuse me. Yeah, I think you're going to like this thing because it is an absolutely gorgeous beast that we will actually be giving away at some point later this month. But the giveaway kicked off today, so stay tuned for that. But let's dive into a few of the headlines and then we'll get into the meat because we did some serious research, or I should say Ben Funk from the Hot Hardware team did some serious research. How many cores do you need for a great gaming PC experience? That's coming up. But let's talk about some stuff in the land of Intel. Intel 11th gen Core H45 Tiger Lake H CPUs launched to push laptop performance envelope. There you go. The Tiger Lake H45 series, a whole wealth of new processors with new power envelopes, additional cores, up to 8 cores now, lots of I/O connectivity on board, copious amounts of PCI Express 4, 20 lanes of PCI Express 4 off the root complex, Thunderbolt 4, of course. These are 35-watt processors that turbo up to 5 gigahertz. And yeah, should nicely amp up Intel's game in the, I would say, the gaming and creator class of notebooks where you could use the horsepower. Marco, you stepped through this announcement. There's a whole bunch of SKUs, as you can see right there. Hopefully not too much of an eye chart on the stream. I have it embiggened as much as I can. What are your thoughts on this announcement from the folks at Intel? We'll step through it quickly and keep moving briskly through the tease stuff here.
Yeah, we'll burn through this because we may have some more interesting stuff to share in regard to Tiger Lake H soon. But yeah, yes. So back in January, Intel announced Tiger Lake H, which with the H35 variant, the quad cores on down. So the latest Intel cores with PCI Express 4 in a notebook, 20 PCI Express lanes hanging off the CPU. These are the higher end models, the H45 family with up to 8 cores. And the power is actually, obviously going to be higher, but these are manufactured using the latest 10 nanometer SuperFin technology. So I believe the top end chip, the 11980HK, at 3.3 gigahertz, it's like a 65 watt chip. So it's not a 35 watt, it's 65 watt at its like middling clock. But 1 or 2 cores can turbo to 5 gigahertz. What does this mean in terms of the bigger laptop market? Well, 10th gen H series CPUs were basically in every high-end gaming notebook. Intel dominated that space. AMD came along now with the 5000 series and got a ton more design wins. Now, these, in my opinion, kind of push Intel back into a leadership position because not only do you have similar core counts, you have what's probably going to be better single thread performance, in addition to a really flexible I/O configuration. So with those 20 PCI Express lanes, they're reconfigurable. You can have 4 PCIe 4 lanes dedicated for storage and 16 for graphics, or do a by 8 by 4 by 4 by 4 and do PCI Express NVMe RAID in a notebook. So you can still have plenty of bandwidth for a discrete GPU with tons of bandwidth for storage. And then you couple that with all of Intel's, other benefits in the mobile space, their own native 802.11ax network controllers, Thunderbolt 4. And there's lots of goodness here for enthusiast class gaming and the next gen content creation notebooks.
Absolutely. And Paul Normand asks, integrated GPU. Yes, absolutely. Xe graphics, Iris Xe graphics, as is the case with Tiger Lake in general. The Tiger Lake family also exists in this family of processors.
So these are UHD, Intel UHD graphics based on Xe. They're not the Iris class.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misspoke there. Yep.
Most of these machines, the vast majority are going to have a discrete GPU. These are for higher end, somewhat bigger notebooks. Still thin. I think 16.4 millimeters and up. So not monstrous if you don't want them to be, but these are for the more powerful class of machines.
Yeah. Yep. And again, good point on the PCI Express, 20 lanes PCI Express Gen 4. That's copious bandwidth. You can do some great things. in laptops with, one of the things we haven't seen in a laptop yet is a true PCI Express Gen 4 SSD, NVMe SSD that can, probably burst, read and write throughput up to 7 gigs a second. You can also RAID now, but you also have some really nice bandwidth to the root complex, PCI Express 4 bandwidth for GPUs as well. So all of that copious IO bandwidth is good to have utilized inside the on the platform itself, in addition to these additional processor cores and clock speed boosts. Chris, I know you're chiming in there, bud.
Yeah, it's looking fast, especially like all the PCI Express lanes should mean some better flexibility for external I want to say dock solutions, GPU external graphics options as well. So very interested to see what comes with these systems.
So two other interesting points. If you noticed, Dave is scrolling past these two charts. There's consumer class and commercial class processors in this family. Right. There are Xeons and Core processors with vPro and other secure technologies built in as well. So they will be in business class machines and mobile workstations. And if you scroll a little further, there's a chart at the bottom that I want to talk about for 1 second, because we don't want to spend too much time on this.
Yep.
So performance, these two are interesting. They show essentially, gen over gen performance improvements and performance over Ryzen. The next one is the interesting one because it requires some explanation. So Intel also shows a Core i5-11400H beating one of AMD's top end Ryzen 9 5900HSs in a bunch of games. And in the appendix, Intel points out the Intel machine had I believe a 65-watt GPU, and the AMD machine had an 80-watt GPU. So how is the Intel machine beating the AMD machine when the AMD machine has a more powerful GPU in it? This is because this test is somewhat CPU. These tests are CPU limited and show the single thread benefits of Intel's architecture with these games. So even if you can't spring for the top end, if gaming is important to you, and as we'll discuss later when we talk about how many cores are best for gaming, the lower core count Core i5s are still going to be good.
That was an interesting topic as well, and we'll move on after this. But you and I kicked that around a little bit as to why Intel was showing a higher TDP GPU being beaten by a lower TDP thermal GPU power envelope. And they were just trying to illustrate a point that when you are CPU limited, obviously you're CPU limited and the GPU is not going to matter. We didn't think they needed to go to that higher end GPU to show that. They just should have showed the same GPU config, same TGP, and that would have been enough to tell the story. But they chose a higher end config just to sort of illustrate the point. But yeah, CPUs can be a bottleneck when you're CPU limited, certainly at lower resolutions and things like that. And we'll be getting to that in a later segment. How many cores do you need is a good good segue there.
We probably should have saved this one for last.
Yeah, we should have. We'll come back though. We'll be back on that topic, talking CPUs and GPUs. I assure you shortly. Let's move on to something else that broke earlier this week. I didn't get a chance to digest this, but Sony's PlayStation 5 refresh reportedly on track with 6 nanometer operative word, 6 nanometer AMD Ryzen SoC. So the rumor is that, PlayStation will be optimized. PlayStation 5 will be optimized, a follow-on to it, refreshed with a tighter process geometry, tighter process node, presumably a TSMC, and should help, you would think, in terms of thermal limitations, as well as perhaps some clock speed and certainly power consumption, although maybe not as much of a concern, but certainly thermals in these tight console chassis are an issue. And it'll be interesting to see if this rumor comes to light and there are some additional optimizations beyond TSMC's or from TSMC's 6 nanometer FinFET process. Thoughts there? N6 node is what they're calling it, the N6 process node.
Yeah, so does it say they're trying to push more performance out of it, or just getting the efficiency refresh kind of gains?
I think my guess, my hunch is, and this is all speculation because this is rumor mill, and or supply chain rumor. My hunch is they're looking to improve thermals and perhaps improve the chassis design to bring out a slim version of the console. But that's, one angle, and there's other benefits obviously to a process node shrink.
Yeah, it's definitely for power. One of my favorite channels that I watch in free time is a channel called Tronics Fix. It's a dude that just like fixes consoles and different, random electronics all the time. And the PS5 is using really expensive liquid metal thermal interface material, and it has extra padding around the APU, so the liquid metal can't travel outside and short circuit anything. And it's because they had to use that. He also did an experiment where he replaced the liquid metal with MX4, and it didn't overheat, but it did throw overheat warnings. So even just with some of the best thermal paste, you can't keep a PS5 cool. You need that liquid metal. So, and it's expensive and difficult to work with. So Sony absolutely doesn't want to keep working with that. So iterating on the SoC makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, that, I've always thought that this console was gargantuan.
Yes,
unnecessarily so. And so that makes that stands to reason that they might be looking to reduce its footprint, slim it down, and get the power down.
Right. Yep. I mean, we've got our gaming PCs that are giant, but when you have a console, you really want to like tuck it away out next to the TV, not becoming a feature of the living room. But
yeah.
There
you go. Tuan says, now you guys are making me question if I want to get a PS5 or not as I sit in a queue to try and buy one.
See, that's the other angle I was thinking, is putting this news out now would maybe get people to dip off the demand a bit and make them the current iteration a little more available. But
yeah,
I think there's still so much demand, it won't really make much of a difference.
Yeah, and the source. Go ahead, Marco.
No, say on the plus side, like the liquid metal thermal interface material is awesome and doesn't get all pasty and dried out like traditional stuff, at least not as quickly. So buying one of the current gens, it might have a longer shelf life before it needs any maintenance, but the maintenance is going to be a little more frustrating and annoying and expensive.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Ben says, wait, I found a PS4 today for $150 at a pawn shop. Okay, that's an option too, Ben. Thanks. All right, let's keep skipping along here because we got some good stuff to talk about. Let's talk about data breaches, which seem to be ever present these days. Unfortunately, data breach, but this is kind of maybe an interesting and or positive outcome of a data breach. I don't know. Data breach exposes fake Amazon reviews scam implicating thousands of unethical behavior. I'll give you the TLDR. Basically, a Elasticsearch database was breached. In that database was identifiable information of users and sellers, e-tailers on the Amazon platform. The basic hook was, we'll ship you a product, you receive the product, give us a 5-star review, we'll refund you your money, and you can keep the product. So here's a free product, just click 5 stars and say you love it, which is kind of pretty scummy. So that's the gist of the leak. You knew fake reviews were a problem, but this was hard proof, and there were, I hate to say it, hundreds of thousands of people involved.
I got hit with this. I bought a magic arm for my camera light, and in the box was a card that said, it didn't ask for a particular type of review. It just said, review the product after you get it, send us a screenshot, and we will refund 50% of the price. So I said, I'm going to try and see what happens. So I did that. They absolutely refunded 50% of the purchase price. I gave it a 4-star review because I liked it. It wasn't because they asked me to. But after doing that, I got a message saying, hey, do you want to review something else? If you do it, you can have it for free. And what they wanted me to do was buy it. If I gave them a 5-star review, they would PayPal me the difference back. That I did not take them up on, but it's exactly how it worked.
Crazy.
Yeah. I wonder if they're using these to basically farm out listings where they start with one listing that's a cheap product, they send it out, get the reviews, and then swap it over to another product that kind of carries over the reviews with it. even though it's a different product.
Yeah, I think it's that, and lots like I'm guilty of this. I sort by average customer review when I'm shopping for something that I don't know a lot about. And if there's a bunch of good reviews, I'm like, take a shot.
Right.
I think it's that too.
Yeah,
it works.
Yeah. Not a great look, for Amazon. Unfortunately, it's very hard for them to track this thing. Obviously, they see the transaction. It becomes a verified purchase because something was shipped to a legitimate customer at an address on their platform. So for them to be able to detect whether or not there was a refund involved in exchange for a review or some sort of back channel communication is obviously very difficult. But I guess the moral to the story is probably this: educate yourself on the product first. Don't just trust the platform blindly. Pick the bigger, better brands, the more well-known, reputable brands as a safeguard, generally speaking, anyways. And then, look at the actual reviews and see if they read just kind of whimsical and just stuffing in there versus somebody who actually put some thought into the review.
and on that note, everyone watching this is probably aware, but make sure that people are aware too. I've had a couple of people recently who have ordered high capacity thumb drives for very cheap prices, and they arrive, and obviously you can plug them in. They'll say they have the full capacity, but they won't actually store much, if anything. It is a very common scam, and like I said, a couple of people I know have been hit by that recently. It's just another kind of scummy behavior thing that, again, they do this, they pump up the reviews for something because people just check, oh yeah, it works, and leave the review. They don't think anything of it. Then they find out that their pictures they thought they stored on it are no longer there.
Yeah. Not a great thing, but unfortunately, buyer beware in this world, and that's why we report on this news. And again, I think this is a case perhaps where a data breach actually probably did some good, exposed things on Amazon's end. There are probably some resellers on their platform that are in some hot water right now, having this data exposed in the wild, and those I guess, less than trustworthy e-tailers on their platform, sellers on their platform, are getting exposed and hopefully weeded out. So, all right, let's move on to something more interesting. Marco, were you going to jump in there? You look like you had something on the tip of your tongue. Sorry.
Oh no, it was just a quick anecdote. You're talking about these thumb drives. I actually saw somebody that got one, and it was an external USB drive, not just a thumb drive. And it felt heavy. It felt like a real drive. But when you cracked it open, it was a little tiny thumb drive that had been modified with 2 bolts inside to add weight that were hot glued inside.
That's just horrible.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Jeez. That is just bad. Yeah. I've never had anything freaky like that happen to me on Amazon. Thank gosh. Knock on wood. So
but make sure that all your friends and other loved ones are just aware that can happen. And sometimes a deal that looks too good to be true is.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm back. I just had to close that because I don't know how, but a YouTube panel popped up and I had the stream going in my ear. I don't know how that happened. Whoops. All right, well let me share this one back out again and get this back on screen. There we go. That's what we were going to talk about next. That's AMD's EPYC server CPUs capture highest market share gains from Intel in 15 years. Now that is significant. That's obviously a testament to AMD EPYC's the EPYC platform, AMD's EPYC platform advantages. Certainly, their significant core count per socket advantage that they have, or they had, certainly early on. A little bit less so now with Ice Lake Xeons, where we're getting to a scaling to 40 cores on the Intel side of the equation, but certainly a very potent server platform that the folks at AMD have introduced to the market that is now getting some significant traction and adding to the bottom line. Thoughts on this, Marco? And we'll discover it quickly because it's certainly notable. We were looking for when the needle would significantly move with AMD in terms of chipping away market share from Intel, and now it appears it has moved in a major way.
Yeah, it took a couple of generations. The market was leery when AMD first re-entered the space with the first gen EPYC. They picked up a little steam, with second gen, and these latest EPYC processors are just they're monsters, they're beasts. And Intel was a little later than they wanted to be with Ice Lake, and this is the result.
Yeah. Yeah, good stuff for sure. The gains coincides with AMD's recently revealing it more than doubled its data center revenue last quarter, which contributed to a strong 3-month period that AMD saw. AMD raked in $3.4 billion in revenue and a gain of 93% compared to the same quarter a year ago. So that company is on a roll, no question about it. Intel is fighting back hard and making some headway as well. But undeniable adoption in the data center for AMD EPYC server platform, and you really just have to hand it to AMD for making that happen. A monumental task.
Yeah, we have Francois asking if let me just add this. Do the numbers include Xilinx?
No.
I don't think so. The sale hasn't gone through yet. I know that the boards have approved it, but it hasn't happened yet. So I don't think they're reporting any Xilinx numbers in there. I would doubt that.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
That deal is not complete. They are still, for all intents and purposes, operating autonomously. I think there's certainly some coordination amongst the teams, but no, that deal hasn't gone through yet. So, no, I don't think the numbers can be in there. Anything else on that one, or should we move on to the main event?
Let's move on to the main event. I know Francois has probably got a lot to say on this one because he was a little vocal on LinkedIn, but we'll save that for another day.
Yeah, man. So yeah, the fabulous Ben Funk, the Grandmaster Funk, launched this today. How many CPU cores do you need for great PC gaming? And there's a little shot of the test system, GeForce RTX 3070 in there, but he also tested a Radeon RX 6800 XT as well. So 2 upper mid-range GPUs strapped to various configurations of CPUs and core counts and threading and multiple different game titles, like lots of game titles, to really suss out where the sweet spot was for not only the different resolutions, 1080p and 1440p. Gaming specifically is what we looked at because that tends to be more CPU limited in certain game engines, but different types of game genres, from Cyberpunk to Gears 5 to, maybe you're a, Sid Meier's Civilization kind of gamer. Interesting findings to be sure. Maybe in some cases not what you expected. These are the game tests that Ben stepped through. 9 titles, 11 different benchmarks, scads of data points. I mean, just really tons of very useful information here. Marco, why don't you dive in and we'll slice and dice this and chat about it.
I will, because this is really interesting. And, over and above the awesome data that Ben provides in the piece, this will allow people to understand how many cores they may need in addition if they want to do other stuff while gaming, like perhaps streaming. How many cores are you going to dedicate for streaming? So, Ben tested a whole variety of configurations from 4 cores, 4 threads on up to 12 cores, 24 threads, with basically almost every step in between here. And what you find across the vast majority of the tests is the sweet spot hits at 6 cores, right? You will see many instances where the additional cores are helpful a little bit, but the deltas are much smaller, separating a 6-core 12 thread to a 12-core 24 thread versus a 4-core 4 thread. Some of the games really drop off significantly at 4 cores. There's a significant drop off of 37%, I think it was, in a couple of the tests, even just right there in Ashes. So Ashes is not a terribly popular game in terms of user base, but it's very CPU intensive, and it runs multiple different benchmarks to show how the CPU affects performance. And you can see the huge difference in the 4-core 4 threads versus 6-core 12 thread. Like it's a significant drop from that middle of the graph to the bottom, but from the middle of the graph on up, it's not that big. Much smaller differences there.
Yeah, interesting findings for sure. Ashes is one of them. Let's look at something a little bit more mainstream. This is Civilization. Really tightly grouped here. Not much variation there, as you can see, but that's actually turn time. So this was an interesting finding as well. Not all GPUs in this case were created equal. I believe up top, the 3070 has a quicker turn time, and by that he means the time it takes for the PC, the computer that you're playing against, the AI system, the non-human system side of the game to respond with its turn. 3070 is actually slightly quicker by a second or so, and but obviously in this game engine, not much really changes. However, when you go to the graphics benchmark, now that was the turn time benchmark, so you would think would have been more CPU limited. Actually wasn't. It was kind of slightly affected by GPU. But when you go to the graphics benchmark, things really break out. Let me see if I can get that on there a little bit more. So that's what it looks like there. 1080p and the 3070 on top, and then the 6800 XT on the bottom. You can see similar scaling.
What I think is interesting about this one is you don't really see the SMT difference kick in. It steps by physical core count.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So the limitations that were kind of in Cyberpunk are here too in Civ 6's game engine, where it's not really leveraging SMT, but it will leverage additional full physical cores. And there's a lot more to this discussion too, because the resolution you play at obviously matters. The more you shift the bottleneck to the GPU, the less the CPU. Well, the CPU is still important, but the CPU will be waiting around more if the GPU is the bottleneck. So perhaps if you have a 6-core CPU or a quad-core CPU, but you want to game at 4K, you're fine. If you have a quad-core CPU and you want to push the fastest frame rates on a 360 hertz 1080p display, though, it's not the best solution. It's not very balanced. But there's so much to consider in addition to budget. It's what games you're going to play, what monitor, what resolution you're going to play at, and what else you're going to do on the system. And we have some questions too that we should probably get to, because I absolutely agree with what James is proposing here. Do we think these limitations are related to the last gen consoles? And yes. It's something Ben touches on in his conclusion. The fact is, as much as we all love PC gaming, right, the game developers are trying to cover the widest portion of the markets possible, and they're coding most of their games for the consoles and then porting them to PC. Those, the Xbox One and PS4, they had multi-core CPUs, but they were Jaguar-based cores. And if I'm remembering correctly, some of the cores were dedicated for OS all the time. So even though they were, I believe, 8-core complexes, they only used 4 or 6 for gaming. So that's why you see lots of the older games kind of limited to the thread counts. But the newer gen consoles have Zen 2 cores with multi-threading. So now there's 16 threads at their disposal. Much better scheduling and handling of those threads. So I think moving forward, we'll see a shift.
Right. Yeah. And I want to touch on one more thing with the bottlenecking between the CPU and the GPU, because either way, you might have a bottleneck and you might think, okay, what's the big deal? One of them is going to be slower. But we find consistently that when your bottleneck is because of the CPU, the smoothness of your frame rates will tend to suffer a lot more than if your GPU is just not keeping up with the frames. So if you want this, I was going to say, we can probably see it in the minimum frame rates as we look at these graphs.
Yeah.
Well, there's frame times later, Dave. Yeah.
There's frame times later. Yeah. I was going to get to that, but this is an interesting point relative to what you were saying between the console development versus PC. Cyberpunk is a much more newer title. Yeah, much newer title. People are playing it, much more popular title. And you can see here that things scale pretty significantly once you get up to 12 threads. Things are pretty tightly packed, but once you drop below 12 threads, things drop off pretty dramatically. And there you can see that's 1080p on a GeForce RTX 3070, and this is what it looks like on an RX 6800 XT similar kind of spread, a little bit more thread sensitive here. Looks like CD Projekt Red fixed their threading issue with certainly with AMD's Ryzen platform. So we are seeing good thread utilization in this game. But this is a case of where it's a newer game title where consoles, generally speaking, have a little bit more horsepower, and so developers had a little bit higher mark that they could target.
Yep.
But yeah, let's go to the frame times. There you go. This is an interesting. Go ahead, Marco.
Was it this page? Yeah. So what you'll notice, right? So even though the average frame rates, right, don't show a huge, well, there's a significant delta from the quad cores on up, right? But in terms of average frame rates and the frame times, you can see how much more erratic the frame times are on the quad core. So even if the average frame rates look like, okay, I'm hitting 60 frames per second, it's not great, but it's fast enough for a good experience. Yes, but you may experience more jerkiness and more hitches because there are significant individual frames that go a lot longer, and it's a much more erratic experience on the lower end processor. So even if it's able to achieve an average frame rate that you deem acceptable, you may still get a better experience with the additional cores because the frame times are smoother and consistently lower, even if the average frame rate doesn't really reflect a massive difference. So that's a nuance that's really for the nerds to understand, but it's there, and like the data shows it. Like it's,
and you can feel it,
you can see it. Yes, you can absolutely feel it.
Yeah, that was the thing. It's a feel kind of thing. In between the frames and the latency that you experience. Yeah, what's interesting is we've been benchmarking games this way, frames per second for years now, and just more recently we've been looking at frame times, and that was the interesting discovery here. Is that, let me go back to this scene. This is the 4-core 4-thread frame times. You can see the spikes are up and down the map. There's a lot of variability. They're spiking past the 20 millisecond mark, and that equals a frame rate of roughly 50 FPS. But when you go to 12 cores, 24 threads, see how everything's tightly packed, and the frame times and the latency it's much tighter. It's much lower. And, I think Ben said it looks like he equates this to over 70 frames per second, and the game felt much smoother in general. So frame rates, all frame rates are not created equal, I guess, is the moral of the story.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
So that was a very interesting finding. Now, again, what's the sweet spot here is the question, Marco. Did we suss that out? I got to look at the next page.
Well, he shows the worst case, which is the quad core 4-thread, and the best case, which is the 12 core 24 thread. Right. Just to show, you can just see, looking at the graphs, how many more frames you got out of the many core CPU, in addition to the more consistently higher frame time. So, better overall performance and more consistent overall performance, and that's important for the experience.
Yeah, and actually, Blackhawk makes an interesting point here, Nathan, actually, who's on our team. I'd be curious to see how this would feel in VR, which would be much more perceptible. And you might be right. You could definitely see where, milliseconds of latency, stuttering and stitching may cause, who knows, it may cause queasiness for all that. It's definitely a break from the immersion, but may also cause other ill effects. Mm-hmm. So go ahead, Mark.
So I was going to say, just one other thing to consider. If you are not a super, anal psycho about keeping your machine clean and free from junk, I can't tell you how many machines I see for friends and family that, oh, hey, my machine's feeling slower than it should. Can you take a look? And I log on, and they have 40 things in their startup folder, and their taskbar.
Why are you trying to trigger me, Marco? Why?
Yeah. So, this is funny because this is still something people don't understand. I'm gonna date myself again. I remember reviewing the ABIT VP6 with a pair of P3s, and
oh my god,
there was a site that used to be
ages
around
ago
called 2CPU that was dedicated to dual processor systems, and they actually said when they posted a link to our review, oh, look, someone else that gets it. Because most people, even back then and today, don't understand that you don't necessarily need multi-threaded software to take advantage of additional cores. Every thread on your PC, every app runs threads, right? So if you have 30 single-threaded apps going on 16 cores, there's contention. You know what I'm saying? So even though none of those apps are multi-threaded, you can still leverage all of the CPU cores. The more stuff you have going on in the background, the more additional CPU resources help, right? So some of those hitches could be other crap on your machine just kicking in for a moment, even though it's not supposed to, when you're gaming. But there's lots to consider. If you need to have a bunch of stuff running, or you want to stream, or whatever, if you're monitoring something else on your PC while you're gaming and have multiple displays going on, even if the frame rates look good with the 6-core, you may want an 8-core, 12-core, 16-core. There's lots to consider, but this baseline data with just the games really shows you where you should target. And if you have the budget and you want to get the most out of your gaming PC, it seems like that 6-core 12-thread is the sweet spot.
Right, and still a minimum. I mean, it's the sweet spot if gaming and you're only gaming, but as soon as you add in a background tab with YouTube or a Twitch stream or even music playing in the background, that can start to eat into those resources, and really like getting an 8-core, 16-thread CPU or better is definitely worthwhile.
Yeah, I think I'm 99% sure on the conclusion, which we would get to, but we can step into some Far Cry New Dawn numbers as well, Chris, if you want to throw that back up there. Yeah. Ben's suggestion was, absolutely. 6 cores is the sweet spot. 8-core, if you have the budget, will give you some room for growth. And as Marco noted, will let you do some additional multitasking and handle some background tasks easier. Here's another example of a game engine that generally scales pretty well over threading. And you can see what that looks like here. Far Cry New Dawn, RTX 3070 on top. And this is a title that tends to run a little bit favored towards AMD in some cases. And you can see how that scales as well. Things start to level off at 4-core, 8 threads. 6-core, 6-thread gets a little bit. Actually, it's kind of 6 threads there in this game, so maybe not as well. Physical cores.
I mean, that game engine is from 2012, so not the best example.
Gears 5
flat console title.
There you go. Perfect example of a console port. But it does show here 6-core, 6 threads. Right. You drop down to 4-core, 8 threads, and things drop off significantly.
Right. And again, these have all been 1080p numbers we've been looking at. As you move up in resolution and you're shifting more of the gaming workload to the GPU, your CPU is not going to be as relevant into seeing at least frame rate differences. Not to say that you don't need as much of a CPU for high resolution gaming, but you may not see the differences as profoundly.
Yeah. I was trying to find the 4K numbers. I know he's got a couple in here.
Page 3.
Yeah. He has got a ton of data in this thing. I mean, just absolutely monstrous amounts of data. It's great stuff.
Right.
Yep. So I'm going to pop a comment from Francois on, because this is also a consideration. He believes
L3.
most of the scaling is from L3 cache. I don't think it's most, because there's some of these games, like Tomb Raider in particular, will scale with CPU cores. Testing whether or not it's L3 cache. I mean, you also get additional L2 cache with the additional cores. Sussing out exactly where it's coming from is a lot more difficult than just changing CPU configurations. But there's there's additional advantages to the many core chips as well, because of the larger cache complement that comes as a result of it.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Tomb Raider here, and talk about especially on the low frame rates, the min frame rate numbers. Look at the linear scaling there. Very, very gradual linear scaling as you drop down cores and threads. On the minimums side,
and the minimums are dropping more quickly than the averages.
And that's with an RTX 3070. Look at how the 6800 XT is much more flat on the min side. Interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to just pop up a quick comment from James just to clarify.
Yep.
Yes, turning off cores does not disable L3, but so there's two different processors used here. It was a 5900X and a 5800X because of that. So to get like the true 8-core 16 thread on a single die, It's the 5800X. So yeah, Ben switched between the two processors for this. Okay,
right.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yep. Cool. Yeah, I might want to make it as real world as possible. Any other takeaways from this thing?
Jump to the last page.
Okay. Let me scroll down. I'm in the
I would be shocked if
layout.
Ben ever wants to touch another benchmark in his life after this project.
This was his idea.
Yeah, I know. But even then, how many hundreds of runs did he say he ran?
Oh, just
700.
And that's a minimum.
Crazy.
Not mentioning reruns because something went awry.
Yeah, he just grinded this thing out. So is this what you want to look at?
No, next one.
Keep going. Oh, then Cyberpunk. There you go.
There you go. So here's what happens in a graphically demanding game where you're GPU limited.
Yeah.
Like you see, I mean, the minimum frame rate on the 4-core is lower, but it's basically flat, right?
Yeah.
So, and it just makes sense. You're shifting the bottleneck around. So you have to consider the entirety of your system is the ultimate answer. But, here you go.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is actually what we were sort of poking at Intel for, was like, you don't need to show the, on the Tiger Lake H launch, you don't need to show the lower or the higher power envelope GPU getting beaten by a lower power envelope GPU. Folks understand as long as you explain it that, when you're CPU limited, you're CPU limited. Simple as that. Yeah. How do I switch this again, Chris? Thank you.
The people that don't understand that may take away, I can get away with a weaker GPU, and that's just not the case. If you're GPU limited, the higher power GPU is going to be faster. As soon as you turn up
the resolution, you're going to feel that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Really good stuff from Ben Funk. And man, let's get down to the conclusion. Again, let me just
I'm gonna answer a quick question while you're scrolling.
Yeah, please do that.
Ben's asking, yes, the benchmarks were run multiple times, and Ben showing the median result here. Okay.
Yeah. The middle result, not the average.
Yeah.
Right. So and that was basically his takeaway. 6 cores, 12 threads. 8 cores, if you have the budget, will give you some room to breathe. But we're quickly seeing a day where consoles are going to start making heavier use of threading, and there will be a little bit more parity between even the console ports and the PC games, the PC exclusives. So interesting stuff for sure.
Yep. Yeah, no, that was a good article. Really good article. Ben did good work on that one.
Yeah. Did I drop the link in the chat? I didn't drop the link in the chat. Shame on me. Let me do that now. You all can go by and check this out. Good old Ben really whipped up some great data to pour over. And hopefully, you can get a powerful GPU someday soon at MSRP. But you probably can get, I think we did a couple of price checks on Amazon. You can get, Ryzen 7 5800X, right around MSRP these days. So the CPUs are at least becoming accessible.
Not quite the same crunch.
Yeah. So, all right. Do we want to move on to the next topic, which is actually kind of fun, Marco?
Yes, we should wrap it up because we're 10 minutes away. So let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Yeah, absolutely. So let me share this bad boy out. There you go. HotHardware Destiny 2 Talon gaming PC giveaway with Falcon Northwest, AMD, and Bungie. This is a system that is now live and up for grabs on a giveaway. It is absolutely stunning. The custom paint job from the folks at Falcon Northwest with the Destiny 2 inspired theme. Chris has it in studio. It is an all AMD affair. Ryzen and Radeon. Chris, can you show them? Oh, you are showing them.
He switched cameras. Yeah, baby.
Let's cut to Chris.
We're fancy here with our production value now. So the beautiful printed paint on the side. This is the Titan side. The top of the system has the Hunter graphics, and then the backside is the Warlock. And then on the inside, I think this has to be one of, if not the cleanest system on the interior I've seen. Come on, focus camera. We'll get that to focus.
Right.
I just need a fancy one like Dave has. So yeah, it's got the Ryzen 7 5800
X. Yep. 8-core.
Yeah,
yep.
It is the X, and then the 6800 non-XT.
Correct.
But 32 gigs of RAM, PCI Express Gen 4 SSD from Seagate.
Yep.
And this thing it kicks ass.
I don't hear it. Is it really super quiet, or is it just because it's far from the mic?
This system runs under load more quietly than my system idles. It's dead quiet.
Awesome.
It's so nice. It's got the 240 millimeter radiator in the front with the liquid cooling loop, and it's just awesome.
Let me see if I can keep that up, Chris, if you could. Yeah, so you're looking at it on the side there. So this is actually the spec. So yeah, AMD Ryzen, let's just say Ryzen 7 5800X, 8-core CPU, Radeon RX 6800 XT, 16 gigs graphics card, 2 terabyte Seagate FireCuda 520 PCI Express Gen 4 SSD. You can see the Asus ROG X570. I mean, this is loaded for bear.
I have the custom cabling from Cable Mod.
Yeah, the cabling looks immaculate. Can we cut back to you? Yes,
super clean.
Let's do that. Yeah, too bad it's a little bit out of focus because it's off in the distance there. But yeah, you could eat off that machine, baby, off the inside of that machine.
Yeah, the camera just doesn't quite want to focus on it. Hang on.
That's all right.
I love how they decorated the inside of the panel too. You know, like you open up the panel, you have graphics inside the machine. Just they did such a nice job.
Oh, you're getting it now, Chris. Yeah, careful.
Yeah.
There you go. You got
Still green screening, but that's fine.
No, it's good. It's good. This thing is valued at $4,847. I assume that's based on MSRP for the components.
Yeah, it's definitely MSRP.
And the door just lifts right off.
Yeah, off the hinges. Yeah, and so that is just a beautiful thing. So that is actually up on giveaway. We have a Gleam widget fired up on the site. I'm dropping the link in the chat right now. The good folks at AMD sponsoring the CPU and GPU, Falcon Northwest sponsoring the case and the immaculate build, Bungie behind it with some styling graphics in support of Destiny 2. Chris, why don't you tell them a little, because you're up on the Destiny 2 stuff. This is in good timing with the recent release of the latest season for you guys, right?
Right. So actually the newest season of Destiny just launched yesterday. Season of the Splicer, it's called, which is a whole lore background thing I probably won't get into right now. But if you're not familiar with Destiny, you may at least be familiar with the Halo series. And Destiny is from Bungie, the developers of Halo as well. It's kind of not really a spiritual successor, but in a very similar vein. You're a space shooter shooting aliens. The gunplay is phenomenal. It's a lot of fun to play with friends. So it's kind of it's kind of like a MMORPG, but with guns. So definitely a lot of fun. And if you want to check it out and see some gameplay, we're actually going to be playing it this evening with this system. We'll have Brittany in the seat for that. And myself, as well as Val Rojas, will be joining. Val will be streaming her side to Twitch. So we'll be teaching Val to play Destiny and showing off the system. So
yeah, man. Good stuff for sure. Let me get back into this and give you a little bit more of a taste. That's the backside that you can't see. That's not on camera, right, Chris?
Right. Yeah. So it's the Warlock panel in the yellow on the right side and the Hunter blue on the top.
Yeah, man. Tons of entries already, but there's tons of ways to enter. 20 ways to enter. So, take your pick. Twitter's, Twitches and Facebooks and YouTubes, all kinds of ways to enter. Take your pick there. A beautiful PC. Look at that thing.
Everything about this system is immaculately perfect. Like whoever wins it is going to be rocking.
There's a good close-up shot of the inside and the side panel. Look at that. Look at the cable mod, the braided cabling with the cable gathers. That is just sweet. no wonder it's so quiet. I mean, just immaculate. Airflow must be sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Marco, how you feeling about this thing?
I'm feeling really. I love it. I think it's really cool. I thank all of the sponsors. It's really cool of them to give back to the community like this and to get behind it and to spread the word. There's nothing negative. Gamers are having such a hard time getting their hands on hardware. I love that we can at least get some really killer high-end stuff into somebody's hands, and going to make someone really happy.
Yeah, absolutely. So this thing's going to run for a couple of weeks. I think. When's our last day on this thing, Marco?
The 20-something-ish?
Yeah, it's before the end of the month. Yeah.
Keep going down.
16 days left, but what was keep going down? Where is it?
It's at the very bottom.
Very bottom. Oh, there it is. May
28th.
May 28th. There you go. So yeah, get in it to win it. And that thing, I mean, that's going to be shipped. That machine right there.
Yep, this very one.
Yep, that Chris has will be shipped with this amazing paint job and some great firepower under the hood. Basically, you can play anything you want on it at any setting. I mean, it is just a smoking rig. Yep. And thanks so much to the sponsors. Absolutely, AMD, Falcon Northwest, the folks at Bungie, Seagate, Asus, Cable Mods. They all contributed. Really good folks are making this a reality. And with that, we should probably wrap it up. What do you think, gentlemen?
Yeah, I'm going to pop a quick question back on the previous topic from Ray.
Okay,
Ray is asking just quickly, how does, say, a real 16 core compare to 8 cores with 16 threads? So that's not a configuration we tested, but based on what we saw, real 16 cores will outperform 16 threads because of some game engines really don't take advantage of SMT properly. Right. So yeah, you will probably see with games that scale with CPU cores better performance with the actual physical cores. And I don't think we missed anything else. Francois saying, Skull Trail doesn't look so expensive with today's pricing. you make me want to pull Skull Trail off the shelf. And I don't know if so this thing over my shoulder, we can't read it on the thread here. That's a quote from HotHardware that was in the Wall Street Journal and Financial Times when we reviewed Skull Trail. That's on my wall. So that's up there still. that was a fun time when we made history in the Wall Street Journal. Intel went with your quote. Put for Skull Trail. That was good stuff. Yeah. But this rig is all about AMD and really good stuff. Ryzen and Radeon under the hood, and you can win it. And so stick around for 7:30 go time at HotHardware Twitch and at HotHardware Vids here on YouTube. Hit thumbs up and subscribe. Hit the reminder bell on YouTube. I think there's a reminder certainly on Twitch as well. You should hit that. So you get notified when these guys fire this thing back up. They will be in the lands of Destiny 2 throwing down, right, Chris?
Yes, indeed.
Val Rojas will be joining. She's in the chat. How you doing, Val? She says she is super excited. And she's gonna oops, I didn't mean to get Ben in there. There we go. There's Val. I'm super excited. And Chris and Brittany will both be on. So it'll be the dynamic trio. Destiny 2.
Yeah, and Val, go check out the number of Twitch followers. Blew up today.
Yes, it did. I was telling her that earlier. Yeah, we kicked off this giveaway contest, and things really amped up nicely on Twitch. So it'll be nice to have a game streaming audience, certainly to check out what you guys are doing in the game tonight.
Yep.
7:30 Eastern
encourages us to do it more. So
yeah, who knows? There. We'll keep the giveaway love coming. Absolutely. And with that, we should probably bid you adieu. Stay tuned. 7:30 HotHardware Twitch and HotHardware Vids at YouTube. For Val, Chris, and Brittany in the lands of Destiny 2. In the meantime, thanks for stopping by.